Hello and welcome to the third episode of the YFO podcast, The Young Football Opinion, where we discuss everything football from a younger point of view. Joining me this week, as always, are Jack Stroudley.
Hello.
And Dominic Riley.
Hello.
So recently, the transfer window opened in England and across Europe, and a lot's been happening this week. We'll start off with the deals that have gone through, starting with Wolves, who have made last season's loan signings, Benik Afobe and Willy Boly, permanent, both on deals rumoured to be around £10 million. We'll start with Jack. Do you think Willy Boly, he'll cut it in the Premier League?
Yep, I think that Willy Boly is a very good signing. Obviously, he was arguably, I think for me, in the top two Championship defenders last season. He was absolutely phenomenal, and I think that he will be able to make the step up to the Premier League. Benik Afobe, I think that's just kind of a safe backup kind of striker, just strength in depth. Obviously, he's got previous Premier League experience. He'll probably play in the majority of the cup games, but I think they're both decent signings for a club obviously looking to solidify themselves as a Premier League side.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And I think Boly, this type of centre-back he is, he's tall, he's strong, not much gets past him. But Afobe, if you look at his Premier League record, it's not great, especially for Bournemouth. He's not got a track record of scoring goals in the Premier League. Do you think? I think we're agreeing, Dom, that he's going to be a backup for Wolves this season, and they're going to splash out on a big striker.
Yeah, I personally don't think Benik Afobe is a very good signing for Wolves. I mean, I know obviously he's got a good relationship with the fans, and obviously he has played in the Premier League before, but I think it was £12.5 million it was. For a guy's, I think is it 10 in 61? Is that what I read? Premier League record. Like, I wouldn't justify spending £5 million on a striker that scored 10 in 61 for Bournemouth, let alone £12.5 million. I genuinely don't think it's a very good signing. I know that last year they had a problem where they only had like one striker up until January, but I think it's about. If I had to rate that signing out of 10, I'd probably go for a 4. Put it that way.
Wow. So, staying in the Premier League, Martin Dubravka, the Slovakian keeper, who's been on loan at Newcastle and impressed heavily as they got to 10th in the Premier League since January, signed on a permanent basis, a £4 million deal. Don't think anyone can complain with the performance he's been putting in, right?
Yeah, good signing.
Nah, he's been all right.
Yeah, he's been all right. He's been decent. So,
Shut up.
Biggest potential signing in the Premier League right now is
Go with Ben Hamer, surely. Oh,
what was that? We'll start with Ben Hamer. He signed for Huddersfield on a free contract.
Big deal, big club, big player.
That is season defining, Ben Hamer.
Huge.
On a serious note, can't see him being anything more but backup.
He's going to be our fourth choice. They've still got Rob Green at Huddersfield.
Yeah, well,
just lying about.
He's clearly impressed in the FA Cup for Leicester. But back to what I was saying. Most impressive deal looks to be this week. Fred moving to Manchester United from Shakhtar Donetsk on what looks to be a £50 million deal. Fred was recently named in TT's 23-man Brazilian squad, and since his debut in 2014, Brazil has made 8 caps for the national team. He's impressed at Shakhtar Donetsk in Europe, making 101 appearances at his 5 years so far at the club. And I don't know if any of you know this, but in 2015, after he had a sample collected at the 2015 Copa America, he tested positive for the diuretic hydrochlorothiazide. That's the one. And
I really thought you were going to say something else a bit more dodgy there, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
He was disqualified from football for a short period of time, and he was worried that he might not be able to play for Brazil in the World Cup, but everything was cleared July last year. But a class centre midfielder. But with the Man United strength in depth in midfield, you see they've got Pogba, they've got Fellaini, they've got Matic, they've got so many names. Top of my head, come on, name other ones. Who we got?
Scott McTominay, big baller.
Herrera's there.
Obviously, Juan Mata. They've got a lot of names in midfield, and I think I don't know which one of you. I think it might be Dom's going to be talking about Fellaini in a minute, but do they need this depth in midfield? It's a lot of money for someone who, I don't know, is he guaranteed to start, do you think, Jack?
No, I personally, I don't think this is a great signing for Manchester United. I don't think Fred is a ridiculously great player, and I don't think he's going to cut it in the Premier League. And I can't see him starting every week over Pogba or Matic or Herrera, to be honest with you. But yeah, personally, I just think that 50 million is a large chunk for someone who I think is quite inexperienced on a large scale. Because obviously you talk about he's at Shakhtar. The Ukrainian league isn't the most competitive league in the world. Let's have it right. And you mentioned he's played 8 games for Brazil. He hasn't scored a single goal. As well as that, his disciplinary record leaves a lot to be desired. I think last year he got like 14 yellow cards and a red, which obviously that's more than he set up chances. So I mean, it leaves a lot. It's just a bit questionable, to be honest with you, for such a large fee.
I agree with Jack. I think it's spending money for the sake of spending money. I don't. Yeah. I understand that they want to keep the squad fresh. I get that, and he's a young player, but I know, and also they also have a lot of money. So 50 million isn't as much as it once was. But is it much point spending 50 million on someone who I agree with that probably won't start? I wouldn't really say so.
It's not like he's been consistent. He's never really been at the top level. He's never been a consistent performer. Like if he was consistently performing at the top level, he would have made more caps for Brazil. And the simple truth, he's made 2 caps this calendar year, but before then he hadn't made a cap since 2015. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a lot of money for someone who they could have easily found a better player for less money, personally. But move on to the people that Dom are going to be talking about.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of big names which will spark discussions. I'll start with Griezmann, because I think it's probably the biggest of the lot. Potentially to Barcelona. I would assume as a replacement for Suarez/Messi, which would eventually lead to a front three of Dembele, Griezmann, Coutinho. Which, I mean, to be fair, is pretty lethal front three if you look at it. I was going to ask you, because I didn't really see a price tag. What would you value Griezmann at? Because for me, I'll probably go 70.
I think his release clause, which Barcelona were looking for, was 100 million. I'm not sure. I think I've read that somewhere, but I also read today, I think it was on a Bleacher Report on Instagram, saying he's told Atletico he's going to stay. I think that's come out today.
Well, there you go. I do think in the future, when Suarez and Messi have kind of, passed the peaks, so I know Lionel Messi is, he doesn't really have a peak, he's always just amazing. But, once they get to that age where they're not up to it, I think Griezmann would be the right man to replace them. But I do also respect him for staying, because a lot of players will just jump at the chance to join Barcelona, like potentially Ousmane Dembele has done, in my opinion. So yeah, this is a different one. Next one, and I want both your opinions on this one. Riyad Mahrez to Man City. Now, I'm a big fan of Riyad Mahrez. And personally, and I remember saying this in January when Liverpool saw Coutinho, and I said, oh my God, they should get Mahrez in, which I don't believe in anymore. But I don't see the positives of Man City paying 60 million for someone who won't start. I don't see the positives of Mahrez going somewhere where he won't start. So if Mahrez is to leave Leicester, personally, I'd say go to an Arsenal or a Chelsea. They were the two I'd pinpointed. Any other teams you guys think you should go to? Because I personally think City is not a good match for him.
Tottenham maybe could fit into Tottenham.
I don't know. I personally think Tottenham are covered there. They've got Eriksen, they've got Lamella, they've got Son, they've got Ali. I don't know. I think you're all right with Arsenal, personally. Well, I don't know, because they've signed Mkhitaryan, they've signed Lacazette, they've signed Aubameyang. I don't know. Chelsea obviously have Willian and Pedro. Liverpool have got Salah and Mane. I mean, everywhere you look in top 6 clubs, they've got cover. And I mean,
you could argue Manchester United, because Sanchez hasn't been great.
Yeah, but you can't just demote a player that costs as much as Sanchez did. I mean, I personally just think he's better off staying at Leicester until. I think I'd give it one more year and then make a sign and then make a move to one of the top 6 clubs. But right now, I don't think you can tell me that he'll start for any of the top 6 clubs for 38 games a season.
I agree. I also
Yeah.
put at the end, I said he should probably stay at Leicester because Leicester have a very, very underrated team, which leads me on to a couple of people they are interested in. The one which I have written down here is Grealish, bracket, 40 million, ha ha ha, George. But yeah, that speaks for itself. Grealish is not worth 40 million. No, there's no chance.
That was the reported figure, and if Grealish goes for anything more than 20 million, Villa have done so well.
I think that Grealish isn't even worth 20 million, to be honest with you. I think the way you look at it is he's proven in the Championship. He is a good Championship player, and I think in the player final he did show like glimpses of quality, but you've got to have question marks about his attitude. And I think the way you look at it is if he was a player worth the 40 million that Villa are supposedly quoting, then a big club would have tried to sign him when Aston Villa got relegated. But obviously he can't have been that good. Otherwise, one of the big clubs would have gone, hang on, he should be in this league. Let's snap him up on the cheap. Like I just don't see the logic behind Leicester paying 40 million for Grealish.
I disagree. I reckon Grealish is probably a Premier League player in waiting. I think playoff final, he's arguably the best player on the pitch. Certainly Villa's best player by a country mile. He's maximum 20 million. I don't think he'd fit in Leicester, but I can see him going to not necessarily a promoted team, but a lower half Premier League team. I wouldn't say Fulham because he wouldn't fit in, but that's just my opinion. The other one, yeah, I don't want him either. Patrick Roberts. I put this down as only if Mahrez leaves, but Patrick Roberts at Leicester, George, would it work? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, he's going no.
Straight to the point.
Explain yourself.
Well, I don't know. I think if he's going to come back to England, then how do we know his level at this point?
He's only been in Scotland. He hasn't been far.
No, I meant like the top division in England. If he's going to come, like he didn't get a chance to prove himself at Fulham or Man City, really. There was glimpses when he made a few appearances, but I don't know. He's been a star for Celtic in the last couple of years when they've had untold success, but the Scottish League's very different to the English League. The pace and physicality of the league is very different, and I don't know. I think Leicester, if they kept Mahrez, they've got Damari Gray, who I think is an outstanding winger. He's a right-sided midfielder. Mahrez is a right-sided midfielder, and you can't tell me like you've got it written down. It's only if Mahrez leaves that he should be an option. If Mahrez leaves, yeah, I don't see why not. I think the pace Leicester play with under Claude Puel would suit him. But while they've got Mahrez, definitely no.
Yeah, I agree with you. The next one, Emre Can to Juventus on a free transfer end of his contract. Before I say anything, Jack, opinions, because opinions.
Emre Can would be an absolutely fantastic signing for Juventus. I think he's one of the most underrated centre mids in the world. I think he is very good at what he does, and I think that he would add a dynamic to Juventus. On a free transfer, he's proven internationally across a lot of different countries, as well as obviously his nation, Germany. And I just think it'd be a brilliant signing for Juventus.
I disagree.
Ooh, go.
I think you said he's proven across loads of different countries. He's not. He's done it at youth level mainly for Germany, and he didn't get much of a chance to prove himself in Germany before he signed for Liverpool. He's never really been their first choice because he's always been behind the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain when he's joined, and Jordan Henderson and Wijnaldum. He's with what Juventus have got already in Pjanic, Matuidi, etc. I don't see him getting regular starting football. If anything, he'd get more starting football at Liverpool. You say that they've signed Fabinho and Keita now. I think he's better. I think personally, if he's going to leave, he should join a mid-table Bundesliga club. I don't rate him that highly.
Oh, George, I disagree with you there. I'm not going to lie.
Go on, Dom.
Oh, okay. I would say you look at the Juventus midfield, Marquisio, Matuidi. You got aging players there. They need someone fresh. I think Emre Can is very, very versatile, box to box, which is what they need, especially that Marquisio style player. And whilst I think Emre Can has been first choice Liverpool this season when he's been fit, I think their first three is Henderson, Chamberlain, and Emre Can. But the reason it's a good signing for all parties is
James Milner's been in most of their starting lineup.
So is Emre Can.
Emre Can has played 115 games for Liverpool since we joined in 2014. So he's played a lot of games for the club. And I think you've got to look at as well, he's very versatile. Not only can he play in midfield, he can play at the back. So he is adaptable to whatever the Juventus manager.
Though, is he? Let's be honest, Juventus aren't going to buy him to replace Chiellini. He's playing in midfield.
No, but it's an additional... You can't play Matuidi at centre-back if you add an injury crisis. You can play Emre Can there. But anyway, I think the fact that they've also got Keita and Fabinho in, I don't see Emre Can get much game time. And I do think, maybe not this year, but in a couple of years' time, he'll be one of the first names on the Juventus team sheet in midfield if he plays regularly.
The reason they're not offering him a contract and they've signed Fabinho and Keita is because he's not good enough. Simple as.
The reason is he wants to leave. That's the reason.
No. They're signing better players for a reason.
Anyway, we're going to move on to another one,
Another
controversial one. The Rui Patricio Wolves Sporting Lisbon saga. Now, obviously, the Sporting whole thing about the players being beaten up by fans and things, that is a whole different... Well, not different, but it's not entirely related to Wolves. Original deal, and this is well researched, by the way. An original deal of £18 million was agreed between the two clubs, but it fell through because Sporting decided they wanted an extra £2 million, which Wolves weren't happy with. Even though by the time they asked for another £2 million, Rui Patricio had already undergone a medical. He then requested to terminate his contract, which I think went through in order to leave. And the reason he hasn't signed is because George Mendes and the owners of Sporting are having a bit of beef, I think. That's a very, very vague way of describing it. I don't know if anyone else knows anymore. But that's basically what I gained from my research. Just beside all the controversial stuff, Rui Patricio, good signing?
Yep.
Well, yeah, obviously, because he's a lot better than John Ruddy. But what you haven't mentioned is the competition they face from Napoli to sign him. With Reina supposedly on the way from Napoli, I won't lie, if I was choosing between Napoli and Wolves, although Wolves have got this big project, I'd be signing for the Italian club personally.
Yeah, I agree with you, but at the same time, it's the power of George Mendes.
Yeah, I understand that. And if he signs for Wolves, he'll be one of the top, I don't know, maybe 5-6 goalkeepers in the league, and John Ruddy won't get a look for sure.
Mm-hmm. Jack, anything you want to add?
No, I think it's all been said, to be honest with you. Rui Patricio is a very good goalkeeper. He'd immediately kick John Ruddy out of the sticks. Let's have it right. And I just think, if Wolves managed to sign him, fair play. But yeah, if I had the choice of Wolves or Napoli, I think you'd be quite stupid to pick the Midlands of England for Naples instead of Naples, to be honest with you.
Yeah, fair enough. Sticking with goalkeepers, Courtois to Real Madrid. Now, this is something that I didn't really see rumored much, and I don't see it happening. Mainly because I don't think Chelsea need to sell him, and also because I believe Real have their sights set on Alisson from Roma, and I believe Alisson prefers Real to Liverpool. But yeah, I didn't think that there wasn't really much in the Courtois rumours, and there's no reason for Chelsea to sell whatsoever. So move on to, and again, we've dismissed.
I'd like to make the point that Courtois has been a long-term target for Real Madrid. Even when he was on loan at Atletico, they'd shown an interest in him. And although they're looking at Alisson, I'm pretty sure that if they could manage to get Courtois, then Alisson would become Chelsea's number one target. But like you said, I don't think there's much to the Courtois rumours at this point.
Yeah, fair enough. Next one, Oguzhan Ozyakup. I believe that's how you say it. Good. Thank you. I worked on that one. Potentially to Newcastle. Newcastle did make a 13 million bid, but since have dismissed any interest. So basically, they got rejected, and they were like, "Nah, you're right." But I think the main point of this is that Ozyakup. So I'm going to go with Ozyakup. He's a big number 10. He's 25, but when he was younger, he was seen as very huge talent, and it's a caliber of player that Newcastle fans are they're very happy with. They're very very encouraged by. It's a caliber of player. He's above Mo Diarma and Jose Perez. I think Newcastle haven't broken their transfer record since 2008, I want to say. I think it's 2008.
It was when they signed Michael Owen, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I don't know what year that was. A long time ago.
I think wasn't it I don't know, because I might have been thinking when he went to Madrid, but yeah, it was at least 10 years ago.
Yeah,
it was Michael Owen in 2005-06.
I saw a stat and it was like every Premier League club had broken their transfer record in like the last 5 years, apart from Newcastle, who haven't. Yeah, it shows what Mike Ashley's done to the club, but you know.
Yeah, basically they're encouraged by the fact they're going for a big player. Speaking of big players, Marouane Fellaini. Now, opinions on this, because I think my opinion will be slightly unpopular, so we'll go with Jack. Fellaini to Arsenal. How do you think? What are you thinking?
It's a bit of an odd one, to be honest with you. It's kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, I don't think it'd be an awful signing, if I'm being honest with you. I think there's a lot worse you could do. I just couldn't see. I just can't see where he'd fit in, to be honest. But don't get me wrong, he's a dynamic to have off the bench that would really change the game up. But I couldn't see Marouane Fellaini, right? Aaron Ramsey, you're on the bench. Like I can't see it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a bad signing. I'm just saying it's just a bit of an odd one.
It's weird.
Unpopular opinion. I think it's rumoured that he's going to sign on a free because he's going to be let go by United. I think it'll be an amazing signing.
Yeah, see, I agree with you.
I think at Everton and Man United, although he seems to get a lot of stick, I think he continues to prove himself. He's always popping up with goals, and I think since they sold Olivier Giroud, I know he's not a striker, but he really prospered at Everton in that just behind the striker role, and he gets goals. He is a really good impact sub, and if you can get someone of that calibre on a free transfer, I think you're stupid to miss out on that. I think I rate him so highly. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with George. I've written down excellent signing on a free. There's nothing can go wrong with a free signing. He's, as you say, this is an option off the bench that they don't have, and he's big player that worst comes to worst to be starting games. It's a big CDM that they haven't had in a long time. So yeah, I think it's a good signing. And the final one is a bit of a weird one. Javier Pastore to West Ham. I will ask Jack last for a particular reason. George, is rumoured £20 million for a player who will be 29 by the time season starts. What do you think?
Well, I think Mark Noble's 29. I know who I'd rather have.
Mark Noble. Get him in.
Mark Noble, yeah.
I don't know. I think of West Ham, I think Manuel Pellegrini, he's a much different manager to
David Moyes.
David Moyes. Also, just like, since I know he's definitely listening, I hope Manuel's okay since he was mugged at gunpoint last night. Hope you're all right, Mauricio. Glad you're listening to the podcast.
He's not called Mauricio. He got his name wrong in the...
What did I call him?
You called him Mauricio.
That's Southampton manager last season.
You called him Mauricio Pellegrini.
Pellegrino. Not Pellegrini.
Should we start the past? Let's start the Pastore thing again. Come on.
Right.
What's his first name?
Is Manuel Pellegrini.
Manuel Pellegrini, that's the one. I was thinking of Maurizio Pellegrino.
Unreal.
Right, I'll go with Pastore.
Pellegrini. There we go. Right, start the Pastore bit again.
All right. And a final one of my little section. Javier Pastore. 20 million for someone who's going to be 29 by the time season starts. I think he's 29 in about 2 weeks' time. So happy early birthday, Javier. I know you're listening. George, what are you thinking? Good signing or not?
Yeah, I think for West Ham, who are going to be trying to play a much different style of football under Manuel Pellegrini that they would under David Moyes, I think he's the perfect sort of player to fit that system. Obviously, they did have João Mario, but he'll be going back to Inter Milan. Who knows? They might sign him permanently, but you can't see that happening if they're going to splash 20 million on someone at Javier Pastore's qualities. I mean, he's proven himself for years at the highest level in France for PSG, and like you said, he's 29. He's certainly not coming towards the end of his career, but maybe he's coming out of his peak now. And a club that, they're ambitious, they're playing at a big stadium, they're going to be, you'd expect, top 10 in the Premier League most years. I think it's a good move for him. I think it's a new chance to prove himself in a different league. I think he'll suit the style of play that Pellegrini is going to bring to West Ham, and I think I don't see any faults with the signing personally.
Fair enough.
I'd like to, with the troubles that the West Ham owners had last season, I think the fact that they're going to invest money in someone of his calibre, it's good for the fans as well. It's good for the morale, like you said about Newcastle, and they're going to be enthusiastic about Ozzy. I think the exact same thing for West Ham fans. Trying to buy someone of Pastore's calibre, I think that will give them optimism, and maybe not much considering the debates they've had with the owners, but a bit more faith in the owners that they're going to bring the club forward a bit, personally.
Do you think, this is a bit unrelated, but do you think that's the effect of having someone like Pellegrini at the helm?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's managed Man City. Like, he won the Premier League with them in 2013-14. And, who's going to turn... And he's obviously played for PSG, won titles there. West Ham, maybe they'll get the good cup run, but they're not looking to win the Premier League. But playing under someone who's got that experience at the very top level, it's good for someone's career as they're coming, into their late 20s, early 30s. So I think that'll be a big part of the move if he does decide to join.
Fair enough. Jack, I'll ask you in a second, because I believe the options for West Ham are either Javier Pastore, and the alternative to him is Mr. Jack Wilshere. I know you have a little section on Jack Wilshere, so we will come on to him in a second. From a West Ham point of view, George, would you rather, and don't let your Fulham bias come into this, would you rather West Ham's, you think for them, is it better to sign Pastore or sign Wilshere?
Well, I think Pastore is the much better signing for West Ham, personally. I think... he's won league titles for years, and I think that experience is going to be key for West Ham. I think he's definitely less of a risk. But no, Jack Wilshere, please come to Fulham. Please come to Fulham.
Jack, I'll let you continue with your Jack Wilshere rumours.
Yeah, so it's now onto my segment of the transfers, and I've got been handed the section of the less well-known players, if you will. So it's been mentioned briefly, Jack Wilshere. He's been linked with Crystal Palace, Newcastle, West Ham, and all of our beloved. And all of. As you can probably tell, George has a bit of an obsession with Jack Wilshere. And I think if Fulham did sign Jack Wilshere, he would be down the shop on the first day and would buy a shirt with his name on the back. I'm genuinely convinced by that.
The home shirt, the away shirt, the third shirt, or my normal shirt.
He's going to find a way to get a shirt on the back of the training kit. He's that obsessed with Jack Wilshere. If he ever meets him, I think he's going to lose his mind. But on a serious note, I think Jack Wilshere is a fantastic signing for any of those four clubs. I think he would add something different to each side. From a Fulham perspective, I think he'd step in ahead of Johansson, and I think he'd be a fantastic signing. So, George, what are your thoughts on Jack Wilshere?
Oh, here we go.
I think you go back to 66 when we had the World Cup winning.
How we got it? How we got it?
We got to 66.
We had the World Cup winning team, and we had George Cohen in the Fulham side. And, Jack Wilshere is going to be the captain in 2022 for England when they win the World Cup.
Sorry, are you comparing Jack Wilshere to George Cohen?
When Jack Wilshere captains England to the World Cup victory in 2022, and he's a Fulham player, and we'll look back on this podcast and we'll think, yeah, best signing the club's ever made.
Right. So moving on to more Fulham news, Ryan Fredericks has been heavily linked with a move to West Ham this week. His contract expiring, so it would be on a free transfer. Personally, I mean, I don't really want to see him go because he was quite good. He was quite good this season. However, I think there would be a lot better right backs to sign in the league. But there is talk that he would be replaced by Gökhan Gönül from Besiktas. I know I've butchered his name there. The 33-year-old right back. Personally, if we
hang on, he's 33. Sorry to interrupt you. He's 33.
He's 33.
Oh,
If we replaced the speedy Ryan Fredericks with 33-year-old unexperienced Gökhan Gönül, I think I'd book tickets for Rotherham away already for the 2019-20 season.
Going down.
I just think that would be the worst replacement of the 21st century. I don't know what either of you think.
I'd rather play Christie than Gökhan Gönül. He sounds like a Pokemon.
He's absolutely atrocious. We're gonna move. We're gonna try and get some more, be a bit more serious here. Andre Silva, the AC Milan striker, has been linked to a move to Huddersfield and to Wolves this week. He's a good striker for Portugal. He scored 9 goals in the World Cup qualifying, so he's shown his class there. However, he only scored 2 goals in Serie A this year, so swings and roundabouts. It's a bit of an odd one, and I personally don't think he'd be that great of a signing for either side, to be honest with you. I don't know what either of you think.
George, you go first.
Well, I mean, he performed well at Euro 2016 with Portugal as they won the Euros. Obviously, I think he was the one that was subbed off for Adair in the final. I'm not sure on that, but he performed consistently well throughout the tournament. But since then, at club level, he's really failed to make an impact, whether it's been at AC Milan or not. But I don't know. You look at the clubs he's been linked with in England, which Huddersfield and Wolves, and you think if he's in, well, England's a good chance to prove yourself, and it won't be at the top clubs because he's not been the best performing players. So I don't know. I think if he joins Huddersfield or Wolves, it's a chance to not restart his career, but he's young, but you know what I mean, like revitalise his reputation, if anything.
What's the transfer fee rumoured to be?
Well, when he was
12 million.
Really? Because when he was linked to Wolves, they were going to pay 32 million.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's 12.
So
I'm pretty convinced I read 12 million somewhere.
For a few weeks, Wolves were rumoured with a £32 million.
Right, well, we've got completely different sources then. I don't know what's going on.
No, in January it was like 30 million. It might be different now.
Anyway, moving on.
So you're telling me that Jack Grealish is worth 40 million, but Andre Silva's worth 12?
The game's gone. Anyway, moving on to another player, which I'm sure everyone's got a lot of opinions about, Ramadan Sobhi.
Big man.
He's apparently about to sign for Huddersfield. He's not a bad Egyptian winger, and I think the way you've got to look at it is they haven't really got much depth on the wings of quality in the Premier League over a consistent basis. You've got Kachunga and Van La Parra and Tom Ince, and I just think it's not a bad signing for Huddersfield. I think he'd be all right. Don't know about you.
The Egyptian national team released him from their training base in Cairo, I think last night, so he could have talks. So I think that one looks quite likely to go through, but obviously they've just been relegated, so it's probably best that he goes back up if he's got the opportunity. And while we're talking about Stoke briefly, I've not got it down on the notes, but Shaqiri doesn't look like he's going to be staying at League.
Shaqiri, he's a difficult one because I know he got 7 goals, 6 assists last year. I read. But, I don't know. I just feel like if you're good enough of a player, I don't know. It's a difficult one. I would love him to come to Fulham. That's an example. I'd take him. Yeah, I would 100%. But I don't know. He strikes me as a bit of an ego. I don't know. It's a difficult one. I think it's a risk of a signing, but you cannot doubt that man's quality at all.
Yeah, can't doubt his quality, and you can't doubt his backwards career. Promoted with Stoke. Goes to Bayern and Inter and ends at his hometown Basel. Great career.
Yeah, he's a good meme. Great meme to have. We could add to his youth. He could be his youth academy. There you go.
Moving on, if you're a Sunderland fan, strap yourselves in. I've got a playlist for So we're gonna start with Paddy McNair, who Brighton the 3.3 million bid. I have no idea why Brighton have bid £3 million for Paddy McNair. It's such an awful signing. I don't you find they've had a laughs in the Skype chat at the moment? I think we can all be in agreement that is the worst deal.
What's making me laugh is just on the thing. It's just big Paddy McNair. Fuck knows why.
And linking back to Sunderland, John O'Shea appears to be joining Reading on a free transfer. Again, another really odd one. I think for Sunderland it's fair enough. They've got to sell assets, and I mean Paddy McNair as an asset isn't really striking much, but. I mean, they've got to try and sell money, not make money. Obviously, they're not getting many people through the door now. It's at the Stadium of Light, and it's just I just don't really know what to say about Sunderland.
Why are Reading going for John O'Shea? I don't.
Ways of a club.
Yeah,
quality placement for Liam Moore. That.
And another former Sunderland player. He doesn't actually play for Sunderland. He's actually contracted at Watford at the moment. Didier Ndong? Is that his first name?
Didier Ndong, yeah.
Didier Ndong, okay, he plays for Watford at the moment, and he's apparently on his way out to either Torino or Cardiff. It was set to be Torino, about £6.6 million, but over the last 24 hours, I've read that Cardiff have entered the fray to try and sign him. Personally, I think he's not a Premier League central midfielder. Obviously, that's proven. He went to Sunderland for about.
Nine already of Cardiff centre mid, so
yeah, you've got a point.
But why as Cardiff would you sign someone who's the only time he ever played in the Premier League he got relegated bottom of the league with Sunderland?
Yeah, it's true.
That's what Cardiff will be doing this season. So,
well, good point. Well made.
Next on, we've got Adam Messina joining Watford for £8 million.
Get bigger and bigger, these names.
Adam Messina joining Watford for £8 million. He's a left back from Bologna. I think I've had a look at his stats online because I'd be lying if I said I've heard of him before today. And,
what are you on about? Right opposite kid, he was my idol.
Adam Messina, in all fairness, I compared him to Holebas, the Watford left back from this year, and he's actually excelled in. He's done better than him in every single kind of defensive stat. And I think that £8 million, Bologna aren't exactly a massive club in Italy, let's have it right. So £8 million is a good fee for them. Messina gets a move to the Premier League. It's an upgrade for Watford. I think it's a great move for everyone.
What about Ziegler?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's first choice. I'd also like to point out, I'm not a fan of you saying Bologna aren't a big club. They made the Intertoto Cup final in 01-02.
Oh, shut up. Did we beat them in the Intertoto Cup final 01-02?
Yes, we did. We won it one time.
Right. And finally, the last player on my shambolic section, John Terry, everyone's favourite centre-half. I know me, Dom and George all passionately despise the bloke. But he appears to be looking like he's going to join Frank Lampard at Derby. Putting more of a neutral head on this, I personally disagree with the fact he should continue with his playing career. I reckon he should become a coach at Chelsea. And I think he would actually make quite a decent manager. Because I've never wanted him to manage Fulham, but I think he'd be all right as a manager, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree that he doesn't really have much more to offer. Like, what can he do that Richard Keogh can't? And Richard Keogh is a bad footballer, but he's he's just. I don't see what the point is. I know it's rumored he could be like a player, assistant manager, or whatever, but I don't know. I don't see that. I think it's just
because Jody Morris got appointed as the assistant today.
Oh, there you go. Personally, I just want him to retire purely for the fact that I want his last game of professional football to be crying on Wembley pitch because Fulham win.
That dream.
That is the dream.
Yeah, I'm not going to share my opinions on Terry. I think that's where we'll leave it.
Yeah, that's good.
So, manager news, George.
Yeah, George.
So, yeah, the transfer section's finally over. Sorry that was so long, but there's been a lot of manager news this week. The big news was in Spain after 3 consecutive Champions League titles. Zinedine Zidane left the club. What do we think, Jack?
It's a shock, to be honest with you. I just didn't really expect it. I mean, I know they didn't win the La Liga, but I mean, I'm sure if you said to a Real Madrid fan, do you want to win the Liga or the Champions League 3 times in a row? They go, oh, give me the Champions League. Like, it's a more more like well-known and recognisable trophy, I think, than the Spanish Division 1. And I just, it's such an odd one. Maybe there was something behind the scenes with Zidane. Maybe he wanted more money. Maybe it was something to do with the transfer window. I don't know. It's just such an odd one.
Yeah, I agree. It's a weird one. I don't really understand. Like, I don't. Yeah, I just confused. I have nothing to add. I'm just confused. I just don't understand.
I mean, Pochettino looked to be the favourite, but that doesn't seem to be happening anymore. And Arsene Wenger has emerged as one of the favourites.
Get in, Arsene. Well in, son.
Now, that would be the story of the summer for me if Arsene Wenger were to take over at Real Madrid. But I'm just going to ask you both, starting with Dom, who do you think should take over the role at Real Madrid?
Jesus Christ. There are millions of names. I couldn't really pinpoint one. I'd like it to be Wenger just because I think he deserves a job that isn't going to be as stressful as Arsenal is. Like he can, a job that he doesn't have to worry if he loses. That DT and troops are going to be ran down his neck every time.
I don't know. Real Madrid fan TV.
You never know.
You say he's got nothing to worry about. Do you not fear that if he takes the job and is unsuccessful, it could ruin his reputation?
Well, yeah, but I'd argue that he's not ruined, but he's hampered his reputation at Arsenal the last 3 or 4. Tarnished, that's the word. Tarnished his reputation at Arsenal a little bit. When they won the FA Cup in, I think when they beat Villa 4-0 in the final, he should have gone there and then. The last 2 years, especially once he lost the Champions League, it was just, yeah. It wasn't really the Arsene Wenger that we all know and love. So I think he tarnished that a little bit. I don't think he needs to worry about that. And also, mainly I'm saying Wenger because I can't think of anyone else and I wanted to say something.
Fair enough. Jack, you got any input?
Yeah, firstly, I don't know why Wenger's even still in management. Like he's set for life in terms of. I'm sure his bank balance is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he's 68. I reckon he should just call it a day and just spend the rest of his life on a beach. To be honest, but for me, I think the appointment for Real Madrid it should be Sarri, the Napoli manager. The old Napoli manager. I think he's just I think he'd do a solid job. It doesn't seem like he's going to join Chelsea. I think he'd do a solid job at Real Madrid.
No, wait, I have a suggestion. Felix Magath. Next.
Oh yes.
On a personal level, I'd rather they didn't go for Sarri. I want Sarri to be the Chelsea boss, so they don't get Jokanovic.
Oh, yeah,
Jokanovic is not going to Chelsea. Why do people think this?
Money talks. Money talks.
I don't care. He's not leaving.
Not so surprisingly, Marco Silva this week, ex-Watford boss, been rumoured for a long time, especially while he was in the Watford job. He's been appointed as Everton manager. Jack, what's your opinion on this?
Marco Silva's a bit of a weird one for me because when he took over at Hull, I know they got relegated, but he really he looked a very, very good manager. And then when he joined Watford, they were in the top half of the table for a large period of time, and then they just had a massive blip. And it's going to go one or two ways. It's going to be a bit like Ronald Koeman. It's either going to go really, really well or really, really shit. And it's a bit of an odd one, but I think realistically he is the best appointment Everton could have made, and I wish him all the best.
Aww.
Cute.
Going down into the Championship, we'll briefly mention a couple of things. Mick McCarthy, he resigned from Ipswich a couple of weeks before the end of the season. He's been replaced by the ex-Shrewsbury manager who got them into the playoff final.
Paul Hurst.
Which I'm a fan of. It's an exciting appointment. It's not your regular Championship or Premier League manager that you just turn to if you want someone. So I'm a big fan of that. And with Leeds, Paul Heckingbottom didn't last too long after leaving the Barnsley job.
Snake.
And he looks to be replaced by Marcelo Bielsa, who he's got a lot of experience managing from international level to European football level. He managed Argentina for 6 years between 1998 and 2004, and he managed Chile after that, and he's had club spells at Espanyol, Athletic Bilbao, Marseille, Lazio, and most recently Lille in France. So, he's you'd imagine he's a very cultured manager, but he's got to get it right at Leeds. We know what they're like. They're used to getting through managers. I think it's an exciting appointment, simply because I haven't heard his name and he's got a lot of European pedigree. I don't know what you think.
First of all, I'm glad Heckingbottom got sacked. Dickhead. Second of all, Bielsa, it's a weird one because we've seen when you bring in a foreign manager, who's never managed the Championship before, it goes one or two ways. It sometimes goes the Nuno way, right? And I'll admit, obviously, there were other things like George Mendes, etc., but he's a very good manager, Nuno, and that clearly worked. Or you go the way of the Moraes at Barnsley. I know different circumstances, but he didn't do much, did he really? I don't know. And I think at Leeds, a bit like Thomas Christensen, I still don't think should have been sacked. He can do as well as he wants, but if he goes 6 games without winning a game, there's chances are he probably will get sacked. So it's a very risky job for him to take. If it works, it'll work very well, and Leeds will be very dangerous next year. If it doesn't, then it'll just be same old for Leeds.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. And finally, managerial-wise, which I think is by far the most exciting one, today Swansea announced the appointment of Graham Potter, the Osterunds manager. Now, I'm just going to start by reading his playing career in England because it's brilliant. In his 23 years, he played for Birmingham, Wycombe Wanderers, Stoke, Southampton, West Brom, Northampton, Reading, York City, Boston United, Shrewsbury Town, and he ended his career at Macclesfield Town. What an illustrious career that is.
So what you're saying is he's got a lot of experience of playing 4-4-2.
Exactly that. He made a cap for the England under-21 team. So,
in 1996.
Yes. But he is an exciting appointment because he's done a lot for Osterunds in Sweden. I'm going to read through what I've found out about him. So he was appointed in late 2010 during the 2010-11 season, originally on a 3-year deal. And at that point, they were in the 4th tier of Swedish football. In 2013, they were in the 2nd tier after successive promotions, and then he extended his contract with Osterunds until 2015. At that point, they secured promotion to the Swedish top flight for the first time in their history. Then 2 years later, another thirst, they won the Swedish Cup. This gained them promotion to the Europa League. Still at this point, they're a fairly unknown Swedish outfit. He's still a fairly unknown manager, and they've got a lot to prove. Second qualifying round of the Europa League, they knock out Galatasaray. That's a sign of intent. Then in the 4th qualifying round, they knock out the Greek giant PAOK. So at this point, that's impressive enough, getting into the group stages. And then in the group stages, in their group, they finish 2nd joint on points with Athletic Bilbao. So at this point, in the space of 7 years, Graham Potter has taken them from the 4th tier of Swedish football to the knockout stages of the Europa League. And he won 2-1 at the Emirates against Arsenal in the next round. And although they went out on 5-2 on aggregate, I think it's such an exciting appointment because he's an Englishman who's... obviously, it's not a big club, but he's definitely proved himself. And the style of football he plays that's got Osterunds so far as a club, I'm so excited to see how he does at Swansea City, personally. Jack, what's your opinions?
I think from your large description, I think you're basically saying you're going to buy a season ticket at Swansea City next year and hope to get his autograph because you seem to be, quite a fan of him. And to be honest with you, before that lengthy description, I didn't have a clue who he was, to be honest with you. And after hearing that, I think that's quite a good signing for Swansea, to be honest with you. And I think that obviously that everyone was expecting they should have kept Carvajal, but yeah, that seems like a decent signing or a decent appointment.
Dom, what do you think about it?
I think I agree with you. It's a very exciting appointment because he's clearly been very successful. But I think we need to, it could all go wrong because while his achievements have been very good and clearly very impressive. I'm assuming he's never managed in England before, and England's a whole different ballgame. So, while I hope he does well, and he clearly has a lot of, good reputation for a good reason. I think you'll see after the first 2 months if his effect is, it's having a good effect. But I hope it does, because I'd like to see a nice, good English manager do well, Brexit and all that.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the final part of the podcast now, and with the World Cup less than 2 weeks away, a lot of friendly matches have been played this week. A few honourable mentions. There was a 0-0 draw played out between Belgium and Portugal. Vincent Kompany did come off injured with a groin injury, but luckily for him, and obviously he has had a lot of injury problems in his career, he has still been named in the Belgian squad alongside Michy Batshuayi, who's recently coming back to fitness after an injury that thought would be ruling him out of the World Cup this summer. So that's good to hear. Big news in Germany, Leroy Sané didn't make the squad for the World Cup.
The game's gone.
Game has gone, mate.
PFA Young Player of the Year, contributing to 29 goals, and he hasn't made the squad over Julian Braun. I can't get my head around it.
Julian who?
It's an odd one. It is a really, really odd one. It's so mad. I think that he's their Germany's best winger. I think he's better than Royce, to be honest with you. And I just think that the fact that he hasn't made that squad is absolutely absurd. And it's been a strange one for football this week. Like it's just so mental. I just can't get my head around it.
I don't understand. I don't understand what's going through his head that he's gone, you know what, Leroy Sané, best young player in the Premier League. Nah, I don't need him.
Nah, you're all right.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'd say whatever you want. If Leroy Sané was English, he would be our best player.
No, you are right by a country mile.
No.
Behind Jack Wilshere.
Yeah. but behind our king himself.
Yeah. But one thing that was positive about squads that have been announced so far this week is the Egyptian squad did include Mohamed Salah. He looks like he's personally said himself that he'll definitely be available for the Saudi Arabia game and the game against host Russia, and he hopes to be available for the game on the second day of the World Cup in Egypt's opening game against Uruguay, which is big news because we want to see the big players on the big stage. Furthermore, Spain, if you remember, go back to 2010, their first game was against Switzerland and they surprisingly lost 1-0. They played a warm-up friendly against them a couple of nights ago and it resulted in a 1-1 draw. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it was a big mistake from David De Gea that led to the Switzerland goal. He just let it through his hands. It's not something we've really seen at Man United this season. I doubt it, but do either of you see it as being pressure getting to him maybe, or is it just a genuine human error?
Nah, it's just personally for me, I just think it's just a bit of a genuine mistake. I think David De Gea is the best goalkeeper in the world, and everyone's human at the end of the day. Everyone makes mistakes, and I think the way you got to look at it is he may have done that for Spain, but how many other times can you go? Oh, do you remember that time David De Gea done that? Like, there's none that springs to my mind. So I don't think it's going to be something that we're going to see on a regular occurrence.
Neymar came back for Brazil after his foot injury that he had to undergo surgery for. Came on around the hour mark in their friendly against Croatia at Anfield and scored a really, really solid solo goal, taking on two men in the box and putting it into the roof of the net. So, like Salah, it's good to see the big players coming back and they are ready to play on the big stage in Russia this summer. And finally, a bit more of an unknown player is Peru captain Paulo Guerrero. Now, I don't know how much you two know about him, but in December of last year, it was revealed that he tested positive for a drug called, and excuse my pronunciation, benzoylicogonin. Yeah, that's the one.
Right.
Now I know. Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, I know when to order it on the black market.
It's the primary component of cocaine. Now,
you could have just said cocaine. It would have saved so much time.
Well, I wouldn't have checked you. Yeah, I wouldn't have been like, oh, actually, it was benzoylicogonin. Yeah.
this is what I was going to talk about. It's not like he's been going out snorting lines with the Peruvian team. It was used in a drink of tea, I think, given to him by coaching staff. I think that's the story. But
It's not his fault, then.
Yeah, that's the thing. But even so, a few days after the test, FIFA reduced his ban from 1 year to 6 months, which would mean that he would be able to play in the World Cup. But then you go back to the 14th of May of this year, and they upheld the appeal filled in by the World Anti-Doping Agency, and then the ban was 14 months, meaning he wouldn't be able to play until about 2020. They accepted that he didn't intend to enhance performance, but he was at fault, which seems a bit ridiculous because he was given the drink. It was a couple of days after this that the captains of the other teams in Peru's group, which were Mile Jedinak of Australia, that was Simon Kjær of Denmark, and the French captain, Hugo Lloris, all signed a document which said they wanted to see Guerrero playing at the World Cup. And on the 31st of May, it was announced that he'd be allowed to play at the World Cup after a Swiss tribunal temporarily lifted the ban. So it's good to see that he's playing. And last night, he came on in a game against Saudi Arabia, scored 2 goals. He is their captain. He has been playing international football for 14 years. He's made 87 caps. He's widely known as one of Peru's best players of all time. And I'm glad to see that the ban's been upheld, personally. From what I've heard, it doesn't seem to be his fault. And hopefully the ban isn't just temporary for the World Cup and it's just in general, because he's reaching the end of his career at 34 and he doesn't want to have a ban over his head because maybe it'll force him to retire earlier. So, So that is where we are going to wrap up this week's podcast, the 3rd episode. Thank you for joining me, Jack Stroudley.
No worries. Pleasure as always.
And Don Riley.
Thank you very much for having me, George.
And must be pointed out that for the next few weeks, the podcasts will be very World Cup heavy, but I'm excited for the World Cup. I know you both are. We're
Ecstatic.
Football's coming home and all that.
Well, I'd like to also make a
England's
point.
coming home after 3 matches. That's what's happening.
When Jack Wilshere signs for Fulham, you will have an entire podcast dedicated to it from George. I can guarantee.
100%. But yeah, join us next Tuesday for episode 4 of the YFO podcast. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to the 3rd episode of the YFO podcast, the Young Footballer Point.
3 weeks in a row. Oh, he's banged the match ball.